Alright guys, today I'm going to show you how to put this linkage together. I kind of promised everybody I would do this, so here we go. I just want to point out too that in the original car, if you look at the drawings, it looks like there's a kind of confusing. That's because there's a housing and a bronze bushing for the shafts in the frame. And eventually a lot of the cars went to a one-piece style, which is basically the same thing, just all bronze. But looking at the drawing, it gets a little confusing because there's two pieces to the originals, and this one is out of a 1959. This car is one of the first couple hundred built, so this is the original design out of the very first cars ever built. So anyway, if you see one piece, just don't get confused. It's an old drawing. I don't think they ever changed the drawing. They changed the design a couple of times, but the drawing never changed. So you have to deal with that and kind of read between the lines. Now you see the hole in the top there, you're going to want to put that up. And every once in a while, you're going to need to dribble a little oil in that hole so that it keeps the levers moving real nice. So just make sure when you install it that is up. If you buy brand new bushings, even if you buy 841, drill that hole in it. Make sure you drill that hole and put that hole straight up so that you can dribble a little oil in it once in a while. Now I grease them of it. When I put everything together, I put a little grease in here, and that'll get you through a couple of years. But then eventually you'll have to start adding a little oil. So I ended up making a press to put the bushings in because I don't like wailing on them with a hammer. So I put this press together out of some old steel and made them. So here's what I do. I'm going to go over to the frame and I'll show you how this press works. And we'll get them in there, and we'll start off from there, I guess. All right, so when you start, even on this bushing, they kind of fall through the frame. But as you get to this last 1/8 of an inch, it flares out, and it will tighten down and stick in the frame. So you got to give it a good pull. I don't like wailing on them with hammers, so obviously I like to do it this way. So I'm basically just putting the bolt through. Get it lined up, make sure that hole is on the top. Holes up nice and tight. And we're good. All right, now if you look, this bushing here, I don't put this one in yet. I got to get the bar in first. So here's our bar. It's a lower brake bar. And I want to get this bracket on there. And if you look, you see there's a short tab and there's a long tab on that. And you want the short tab pointing forward. So slide that on there. You can slide that through the hole. That goes in. And then this one goes in, and then I will tap on them to make sure they are set and nice and tight. And then that little bar here, I'm going to get a little grease, and you can see I didn't put any paint on where the bar goes through the bushing. Just that paint alone is enough for it to stop it from going through. So I don't paint them until they're 100%. Do a little pre-paint, and then I paint the ends later. So there we go. Let me get got our spacers. You'll see those in the drawings that go on. And then our brake shoes. And you can see that tab down on the end. I want my handle to be opposite of that. So I want my handle to be this way, not lined up with it, but opposite of it. So tab down on the end, pointing to the right. Handle's going to be pointing to the left, 180 degrees out of phase. So that's what you got to make sure you got that right. And then we'll get this tapped back together. Put our collar on. That's our top bar ready to go back on. You guys will notice that when I put this bar in the next little piece here, that I forget to put this little spacer on. So make sure you slide that spacer over the bushing and before you stick the rod through there, because that keeps the thrust on the shaft here, keeps everything from moving around. So you'll see me forget to put that on, but I did go back and put it on, so don't forget. Okay, and here we go. I'm going to put this bar in. Let it flap down. Now I'm pretty sure this washer isn't in the directions, but I make one anyway because I don't want the cotter pin biting into the side and tearing up this bushing. So I put a washer on there. And then of course our cotter pin goes in. Alright. Now if you take a look, you can see that this is a bit worn out. It's pretty bad. So I went and made a new one. Didn't like that one. It's really bad. So if you have to, take the time. Make new parts. You won't regret it. There we go. Both on the back side of the rods. And again, cotter pin in both. And you'll see this one gets tore up pretty bad. Once you start flipping the linkage, this one's going to get all bent up. So I just bend both of them down. There we go. Of course, your plate will go on here. Flip that tab forward. And then the brakes will go on. So this one's behind the bar, this one's in front of the bar. You want to take your bent rod, put a nut down about 2.5 inches. Put the spring on. Insert it into the bracket here. And there should be a double nut on the top. That will go in right there. Eventually this will be adjusted up and down, but my fingers are too greasy and I can't do it right now. So I'll wait until the camera's off. That's going to go in there. Of course, back to the front again. Cotter pin. You can see how that action works, right? Have the transmission bar, the bent one. Now this guy here gets a nut washer, then the bracket goes on that bolts to the transmission, washer and a nut again. And that simply just goes underneath here. Again. And then that will come up to the transmission. Pull it back, you get your reverse, and click. So that's how that works. So I'm just going to run these nuts down a little bit. Put this cover here on, this little bracket that holds together. And then I'll wipe it all down. Now, one thing I want to show you too is the original design. When everything's lined up, and I don't know what happened, but there's a lot of rod missing here and a lot of rod sticking out over here, and that was original. So in the drawings that I produced, I moved this bracket on the rod. If you want to cut that bracket off and move it over and weld it on, it's about a 5/8 difference if you want to do that. Now I'm kind of all about originality, and I like to put them back the way they were built from the factory, so I'm going to leave it just the way it is and call it good. But if you're kind of a stickler for perfection over originality, then you can either move that over 5/8 or just build a whole new bar or whatever you want to do. But grind it off, move it over, weld it up. Once I got that bushing in there, let's see here. All right, now last thing I did, slide this little rod collar here, or whatever you want to call it, slide that over, tighten it up so that the linkage can't move in it. And then if you notice, this hub on this handle here is cross drilled for a pin, but it also has a set screw in it also. So I think what they did was, at the factory, they just took one of these collars and they welded it to that handle, and then they drilled a hole through it and through the shaft at the same time, and used the shaft collar as that piece. Didn't have to make it. You can buy a shaft collar real quick, and probably production-wise, it's probably a pretty smart move. So make sure you get that done, and then, of course, this little spacer here that I had forgotten. Got that put in there. So that's pretty much it. Now we're just waiting. I got to get my transmission serviced, and probably going to tear it apart, clean it all up, get some seals in it. Seems like it's pretty tight. Pretty good car here. I don't think it was used very much. So everything is pretty much, other than that one piece, there ain't a whole lot that's worn out on this car. So anyway, good for me, and happy motoring, fellas.